There is a very special kind of courage, the courage to throw in more money, not the courage to bet everything, but the courage to accept uncertainty, the courage to say, I might lose again, and I do not have any special right to win just because I have suffered so long. That is maturity. It is a painful but necessary step into growing up. Are you ready to face it? A different way to see luck. Imagine if luck were not some mysterious force swirling around you, keeping count of how many times you have lost so it can decide when to pay you back. Imagine it instead as a cold, indifferent chain of independent results. That sounds frightening, but that same indifference is the only true fairness there is. No one gets special treatment. No one is singled out for punishment. You could call it cruel, or you could call it freedom. One final story. There was a man who once went bankrupt because of the martingale strategy. Years later, when someone asked him what he regretted most, he did not talk about the money. He said this, I regret that I did not have the courage to walk away. I thought I was in control of everything. In reality, I was just running from the fear of losing. Are you running from your own fear? What you can do differently? If you want to escape the gambler's fallacy, start with 3 small steps. Pause. Every time you lose repeatedly, do not rush to bet again. Take a deep breath. Notice what you are feeling. Ask yourself, do the previous results change the odds this time? The answer is almost always number. Except, you do not control randomness, but you do control how you respond to it. Are you ready to try? Closing words, the power of awareness. You and I have walked through history, psychology, neuroscience, and real-life stories. You have seen with your own eyes how the gambler's fallacy is born, how it grows, and how it devours the confidence of even the smartest people. If there is just one message I want you to carry with you, it is this. Randomness has no memory, and it does not owe you any victory. But it is that harsh truth that actually sets you free. You no longer have to sit and wait for the winning turn that must be coming. You no longer have to place blind hope in a fair universe. You can choose to walk away. You can choose to make decisions based on reason, not emotion. You can choose freedom. One last question to close. Close your eyes, take one more deep breath, and ask yourself, if starting today I no longer believe that a losing streak has to end, how would my life be different? Do you have the courage to find out? Thank you for listening. If this video has sparked even a little doubt, a little self-reflection, and a little new hope inside you, then our journey has not been in vain. He walked into the casino with a powerful conviction. I have never lost more than 5 rounds in a row. This time will be no different. He placed one bet after another, raising the stakes every time he lost. By the 7th round, he had lost nearly half his fortune. Everyone tried to stop him. He waved them off, his eyes blazing. It cannot keep losing. It just cannot. On the 12th round, he lost everything. When he walked out the casino door, he stared at his trembling fingers and whispered, I knew it all along, but I still could not stop. Are you sure you would be any different? One last question. If you could turn back time, return to the moment right before you placed your bet, would you do anything differently? If you knew for certain that a losing streak could go on forever without changing the odds, would you have the courage to walk away? The greatest conflict, to face randomness or run from it. This is the climax of every game, every decision, every hope. Do I dare accept that life sometimes has no meaning at all? Are you ready for that? You and I have traveled a long journey, together from the stories of Monte Carlo to the laboratory with its endless strings of random numbers, from the woman who lost her entire savings in Reno to Mr. Zhang stepping out of the casino into the night. You have witnessed firsthand a truly strange paradox. The more we understand it is meaningless, the more we long to believe it is real. It is not just a small error in thinking. It is part of our human nature, a deep belief that everything will eventually become fair. Ask yourself one last time, why can we not stand the idea that randomness is simply randomness? Maybe because deep down, Human beings do not just live to survive, we live to find meaning. The meaning and the comfort of a rule. Think back to how you felt when you kept losing over and over again, when the dice refused to be fair, when the coin just kept landing the same way. In that moment, the only thought that helped you keep going was, this losing streak will end. I cannot be unlucky forever. That belief is both an illusion and a comfort. It gives you the strength to keep trying, even though your chances have not improved one bit. You can blame it, or you can see it as a completely natural part of being human. The gambler's fallacy, a mirror, reflecting the self. Think a little further. If you could learn to look straight at probability without clinging to illusions, would you be freer? Would you make better decisions? Or would that perfect clarity make life feel dry, stripped of emotion, stripped of the hunger to win? This is not an easy question to answer. A lesson that reaches beyond the casino. The gambler's fallacy does not only live in noisy casinos or on brightly lit betting boards. It slips into the way we wait for a career opportunity, telling ourselves, I have failed so many times already. This time has to be different. It appears in the way we keep loving someone who never loves us back, while we comfort ourselves. I have suffered enough. It has to be my turn for happiness. It hides in every place. We do not want to admit that the outcome is never shaped by the past. Can you see it somewhere in your own life? The courage to face reality. You might be wondering, why will my brain not understand? Why can I not train it to be purely rational? Neuroscientists have discovered that the part of the brain responsible for assessing risk, the prefrontal cortex, is very weak against the influence of the limbic system, which controls emotions. When you lose over and over again, the amygdala triggers a stress response, flooding your blood with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart starts racing, your breathing gets short, your palms grow damp with sweat. You are no longer in a state of calculating probability. You are in fight or flight mode. And because of that, you become even more willing to believe the losing streak is about to end. Does that feel familiar to you? A real story. Gamblers who cannot leave the table. A study was conducted in Reno, Nevada. Psychologists hooked up heart rate monitors and skin conductance sensors to 50 people playing slot machines. The results were surprising. Every time the players lost again, their heart rate and stress signals did not go down instead. They spiked higher. The more money they lost, the more convinced they felt that they were about to win. One woman named Lisa sat there for 13 hours straight, losing more than $7,000. When she was asked why she did not stop, she just whispered, I know it is stupid, but I am sure the machine is about to pay. Can you honestly say you would never act like Lisa? An unanswered question. What is luck? Take a moment, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, if everything is random, why have people for thousands of years still believed in luck? What is luck really? Does it exist? Or is it just another name for probabilities we do not fully understand? When you flip a coin and it lands tails 10 times, you call it bad luck. But if it lands heads 10 times, you call it good luck. The truth is, both are just sequences of outcomes, nothing more, nothing less. Do you feel a chill down your spine when you realize that? A fairy tale, a fair universe. Since childhood, we have all grown up with fairy tales. Those stories teach us. Good people will eventually be rewarded. Those who stay patient will reap success. After the storm, the sky clears again. It is a beautiful hope, but it does not apply to pure probability. Are you willing to let go of that fairy tale? Another experiment, absolute randomness. In the lab, researchers created a computer program that generates sequences of numbers at random. A volunteer sat in front of the screen, pressing a button every time they felt this sequence is about to change. Even though the program had no pattern whatsoever, the person insisted, I can feel it is about to shift, I am sure. Do you see how that feels almost exactly like your own experience? When the conflict reaches its peak, maybe you are thinking, so in the end, what should I do? How am I supposed to live if everything is just randomness? This is exactly the peak of the conflict. On one side, you crave control, crave meaning. On the other, you face the cold reality. The universe does not remember, does not care, does not hand out luck. Are you ready to look straight at that? The final story. The man who lost everything. In Macau, there was a wealthy businessman, let us call him Mr. Zhang. Even though you rationally know that each result is independent, your emotions keep urging you. Just try one more time. Have you ever felt that wave of dopamine yourself? The sunk cost trap. Have you ever thought, I have put in too much effort to quit now? That is exactly the sunk cost fallacy. The more time and money you invest, the harder it becomes to accept defeat. What is the result? You keep betting, going deeper and deeper, just to maintain the illusion that you are about to win. Do you have the courage to stop, even when the losses have already grown big? How to recognize and escape the fallacy. The first step is awareness. You need to ask yourself, do the previous results have any effect on the current probability? Is this an independent game? Are my emotions making the decision, or are the facts? Every time you catch yourself believing the losing streak is about to end, take a step back. Breathe deeply. You will realize it is only an illusion, a truth few people want to accept. This may be hard to hear, but you need to hear it. The universe does not owe you any victory. If you have ever believed that bad luck will eventually run out, remember probability has no memory. You might win, or you might keep losing. No one, not even you, can control it. You and I have traveled through so many stories, from Monte Carlo, the indifferent coin, to the slot machines in Las Vegas. We have peeled back the layers of the gambler's fallacy, exposing all the psychological mechanisms that turn us into prey for our own minds. But here is the heart of it all, the moment when all that knowledge suddenly becomes alive, and you are forced to ask yourself, if I know for certain that everything is independent, why can I still not stop believing that the losing streak has to end? That is the deepest conflict, a fierce clash between reason and instinct. Try to remember the last time you walked into a casino, or simply the last time you played a game of chance. You lost 3 times in a row, 4 times, 5 times. On the 6th try, you put your money on the table, and somewhere inside, there was a small voice whispering, I know this is just probability. I know it does not remember the past. But then another voice spoke up, louder, more seductive. But it cannot keep losing forever. Did you hear that voice? The logical conflict. Your mind knows, but your heart refuses to believe. Picture a professional poker player, someone who has read dozens of books about probability. He knows every ratio, every strategy, every kind of bad beat. But when he loses 7 hands in a row, he still starts to think, next time, the cards have to be good. Do you see the paradox? If an expert who has spent half his life studying the game still cannot escape that feeling, what hope do ordinary people really have? This reveals a difficult truth. We are not purely rational creatures. Can you accept that? The brain was not designed for probability. Causal thinking, there has to be a reason. People hate randomness because it makes us feel powerless. If we lose 5 rounds in a row, the brain automatically starts hunting for reasons. I must not be focused today. Some unlucky person showed up. This place has bad energy. Does that sound familiar to you? We make up stories to soothe the feeling that nothing matters. The brain will latch onto any explanation, as long as it helps us believe we have some control over the outcome. But what is the truth? In a game of flipping coins or spinning roulette, there is no hidden cause that changes the probability. Every result is still completely independent. Are you ready to accept that? The overconfidence bias, I am not like them. Have you ever watched people go bankrupt because of the martingale strategy and thought, they were just foolish? That would never happen to me? That is exactly the overconfidence bias. We always think we are smarter than the crowd, that we are more patient, more clear-headed, better at managing our money. Ask yourself honestly, If the losing streak lasts twice as long as you expected, will you really stay patient? In studies about gambling, researchers found that even experts fall into the gambler's fallacy when they have to make decisions under high pressure. You are not the exception. A connection to financial investing. The gambler's fallacy also creeps into the world of financial markets. A stock investor sees prices falling for 5 days in a row. He tells himself, the odds of going up are so high now, it has to recover. So he decides to buy more. But stocks are not coins. Can prices keep dropping? Yes, and very often they do. The result? Millions of investors lose everything because they believe a losing streak must come to an end. Have you ever made an investment decision just because of that feeling? The regret effect and emotional attachment. When you lose money, you are not just losing something material. You are also losing the belief that you are in control of the game. The brain hates losses many times more than it enjoys winning. That is why every time you lose, you become even more obsessed with winning it back. And the longer the losing streak goes on, the more convinced you feel that victory is right around the corner. It is a toxic emotional attachment, just like an addiction. Have you ever been caught in that spiral? An example, playing the slot machine. Imagine yourself sitting in front of a slot machine. You have pressed the spin button more than 200 times, nothing but losses. Every time you hit that button, you tell yourself, this time will definitely be different. Why? Because you cannot stand the idea that all your effort and all your money have just gone down the drain. You have to believe the machine is about to pay out. But probability does not care. It does not remember who you are. It does not pity you. Do you have the courage to walk away before you lose even more? Neuroscience. The reward system. Inside the brain, the striatum plays the role of processing rewards. Every time you win, dopamine floods in, creating a rush of excitement. When you lose, dopamine drops, and the brain sends out a signal that says, you need to make up for this. The gambler's fallacy is not just a simple psychological game. It is a powerful testament to the very human limits. We all share the limits of how we perceive risk, how we evaluate probability, and how we understand the nature of randomness. In this part, we are going to dive into 3 big questions. Why does the human brain stubbornly create imaginary rules? What theories and ideas try to explain this phenomenon? And how does the gambler's fallacy connect to your everyday life? Let us begin right where the story starts in your own mind. Evolutionary psychology, searching for order in chaos. Since prehistoric times, our ancestors lived in an environment full of danger and uncertainty. Every unexpected noise could be a signal that a predator was nearby. Every shadow passing through the grass might have contained a clue that meant life or death. Just imagine, if they ignored those signs, they would die. On the other hand, if they overreacted, if they heard a branch crack and assumed a wild beast was coming, they might feel stressed, but at least they would stay alive. That is why the human brain evolved to always prioritize finding patterns, detecting rules, even when those rules did not exist at all. This is called pattern recognition bias. Do you notice it in your everyday life? Think about the times you have looked up at the night sky, trying to find the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, or some other constellation. In reality, those stars are not connected in any meaningful way, but we still want to give them a clear, familiar shape. When you lose 3 games of Parcheesi in a row, you tell yourself, there is no way I can keep losing. That is the same inborn need to turn chaos into order. The balance fallacy law of small numbers. There is a very common misconception that short-term results will quickly balance out to match the long-term theoretical probability. You have probably heard someone say, that lottery has not had a 7 come up in months. It has got to be due soon. That is exactly the balance fallacy in action. Let us do a little exercise. If you flip a coin 10 times, you might think the most perfect outcome would be 5 heads and 5 tails. Maybe, but it could just as easily be 7 heads and 3 tails, or 9 heads and 1 tail. It might take you 10 flips to get a balanced result, or 100. or 1,000. And even after 1,000 flips, the ratio still might not be exactly even. This is important. Short-term and long-term are not the same thing. But in the human mind, if a losing streak gets long enough, we start to believe that luck has been piling up and is about to explode in our favor. Have you ever felt that way? The clustering effect, it just keeps happening. Another concept is called the clustering effect, the tendency to believe that similar results clump together more often than pure randomness would allow. For example, when you see someone win the lottery twice in their life, you immediately think they are just lucky. But in a population of millions of ticket buyers, the chance that one person wins twice is actually perfectly normal. Or when you look at the lottery results and see the same string of numbers pop up a few times in 1 month, you start believing there must be a hidden pattern. But that is just natural probability at work, nothing more. Are you unconsciously searching for your own lucky clusters in your life? Some people say, I have been buying lottery tickets for 10 years without winning. This year has to be my turn. But look squarely at the probability. If the odds of winning are 1 in 10 million, then every single ticket, no matter how many times you have played before still, has exactly the same chance. Or think about dating. You have probably heard someone say, I have only met terrible people. Next time will definitely be different. Maybe that is true. Maybe it is not. But the belief that the past must be balanced out by the future is a version of the gambler's fallacy. Have you ever wondered, why do we feel the need to assign some kind of fair meaning to a universe that does not have one? Misunderstanding probability leads to dangerous decisions. Quite a few people fall into the doubling up strategy, the martingale. The idea is simple. Every time you lose, you double your bet. That way, as soon as you win once, you recover all your losses. It sounds perfect, does it not? But reality is far more ruthless. Let us suppose you start with $10. Lose the first round, you lose $10. Lose the second round, you bet $20. Lose the third round, you bet $40. Lose the fourth round, you bet $80. Lose the fifth round, you bet $160. Lose the sixth round, you bet $320. Lose the seventh round, you bet $640. Lose the eighth round, you bet $1,280. After 8 losses in a row, you have lost a total of $2,550. And an 8-loss streak is not even rare. That is just a 1 in 256 chance. Are you really ready to accept that risk just because you believe it cannot keep losing forever? Another story, the unyielding blackjack player. Listen to the story of Peter, a man addicted to playing blackjack. Peter believed that if he sat there long enough, he would win back everything he had lost. Every night he went to the casino, sitting there for 8 hours straight, carefully recording every hand he lost or won. One night, after losing 14 hands in a row, he decided to bet all his savings more than $10,000 in a single hand. In his mind, a voice was repeating, the odds have to be better this time. But the cards dealt were a 5 and a 6, totaling 11 points. The dealer drew another card, a 10. Bust. He lost everything. He sat there motionless for a long time, not because he regretted the money, but because he simply could not believe that the rule of fairness had abandoned him. Have you ever felt that way yourself? The psychology of searching for patterns. We hate randomness. It makes us feel like we have lost control. It makes us feel small. That is why the brain will do anything it can to sketch out imaginary patterns on a chaotic canvas. Try to remember the last time you rolled dice. If you got a 1 2 times in a row, did you think, there is no way it will land on 1 again? That is exactly the gambler's fallacy. Why is this knowledge important? Many people think, it is just a game, it does not matter. But this fallacy has a deep impact on how we invest, how we evaluate risk, and even how we make decisions in our personal lives. An investor sees the price of a stock dropping 3 days in a row and believes it cannot keep falling. He buys more. And then the price keeps falling. Someone buys insurance after going 10 years without any accidents because he believes bad luck is bound to come. Have you ever done something similar? So how can you avoid falling into this trap? First of all, remind yourself that every time you flip a coin, spin the roulette wheel, or draw a card, it is an independent event. Ask yourself, if I were just starting to play, what would the probability be? And the answer is always the same. No losing streak ever has to end. No winning streak ever must disappear. The only thing that changes is your emotions. A truth worth reflecting on. Pause for a few seconds, close your eyes, and ask yourself, if I truly understood that probability does not owe me anything, how would I act differently? If I stopped believing that the universe is keeping a tally of every loss to pay me back, how much lighter would life feel? Are you ready to let go of that illusion? The gambler's fallacy might sound at first like just a dry psychological concept, but in reality, it is closely connected to almost every decision we make in our daily lives, from buying lottery tickets, playing games, and investing in stocks, all the way to falling in love. The origin of the term gambler's fallacy. Let us start with the name itself. Gambler, the person who places bets. Fallacy, a false belief or illusion. This term appeared in psychology papers in the late 19th century, when researchers began studying the behavior of professional gamblers in France and England. But perhaps the most famous and also the most tragic example was the Night of Monte Carlo in the year 1913. Can you picture that scene? A magnificent casino on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, brilliant crystal chandeliers, gentlemen and ladies dressed in evening gowns, soft music playing in the background, the sparkling roulette wheel spinning around and around. When black came up for the 10th time, people started murmuring. By the 15th time, the crowd was packed tightly around the table, faces flushed, hands trembling as they counted their money. Every eye was locked on the little white ball, dancing around as if to mock them. A wealthy man, known as Count V, stood up and declared loudly, "It cannot stay black forever." He placed a massive bet on red. The crowd burst into applause. Everyone was convinced they were about to witness a historic reversal. But then, black won again. The 16th time, the 17th, all the way to the 26th. When the wheel finally stopped spinning, many people had lost every bit of their savings, and some had to mortgage their homes. And the only thing that made them so sure about their decisions was the illusion that the odds had to make up for that unusually long streak of black. Have you ever wondered, if red had shown up a little earlier that night, would we even remember this story at all? The core of the fallacy: misunderstanding independent probability. To truly understand the gambler's fallacy, you need to grasp one key concept: independent probability. Imagine you flip a coin. The first time it lands on heads. The next time it lands on tails. The third time, who knows? Every flip is a completely new game. The coin does not remember what side it landed on before. It has no memory, no feelings. It does not owe you any kind of victory. So why does our brain stubbornly believe that if we have lost too many times, the next turn has to be a win? That happens because we confuse long-term frequency with short-term results. It is true that if you flip a coin millions of times, the ratio of heads to tails will get closer and closer to 50-50. But that does not mean that in the first 20 flips, the outcomes will always be balanced. Have you ever felt that thought creeping in? This time, I am definitely going to be luckier? Remember, this is just an illusion created by your mind. Why does the brain create this illusion? Neuroscientists have discovered that humans have a natural tendency to look for patterns in everything. When our ancestors saw animal tracks, they had to figure out, is there some creature nearby? What does it mean if those prints show up over and over again? This sharp instinct used to be a survival weapon, but in the modern world, especially in games of chance, it becomes a trap. There was an interesting experiment that psychologists once carried out. They asked hundreds of people to predict a sequence of coin flips. When the result came up as tails 3 times in a row, More than 70% of the participants believed that the next flip was almost certainly going to be heads. Are you one of them? Everyday examples: buying lottery tickets and falling in love. But the gambler's fallacy does not only exist in grand casinos or high-stakes games, it hides in the smallest moments of everyday life. Think about all those times you told yourself, "I have been so unlucky. There is no way tomorrow will not be better." Or when you looked at the stock market ticker, watching the price of a stock plunge without stopping, and you whispered, "It cannot keep falling forever. It is bound to bounce back soon." Have you ever asked yourself, is this some kind of natural law, or just an illusion my brain makes up while trying to find order in all this chaos? Let me tell you another story. There was a young man who was obsessed with flipping coins. Every time he lost, he doubled his bet to make sure that when he finally won, he would recover everything he had lost. This strategy sounded clever. It even had a very impressive name: the Martingale strategy. Unfortunately, one night he lost 7 times in a row. The amount he needed to bet next was more than he could afford. And right then, the coin landed on heads, but it was already too late. Does this story sound familiar to you? The question is, why does our brain hate randomness so much? Why do we cling to the illusion of some secret pattern rather than accept the truth that the future does not owe us a win? Maybe it is because the human brain evolved in a world where cause and effect were always connected. If you heard footsteps behind you, that usually was not random. If the sky suddenly turned dark and thunder rumbled, you understood that rain was coming. Survival depended on your ability to recognize patterns. But in the world of games of chance, that skill turns into a burden. We cannot stand the idea that the roulette wheel does not care about anyone's streak of wins or losses. The coin does not hold any memory. The dice do not have feelings. Have you ever wondered, how do you escape this mental trap? If you ever hear someone say, after a long losing streak, luck is bound to come around, remember the story of Monte Carlo. Remember the vacant stares of the gamblers walking out into the night with empty pockets, haunted by that nagging question, how could I have been so sure? The gambler's fallacy is not just a trick played by casinos. It is proof of a much bigger truth. We are terrified of uncertainty. But are you ready to step into the journey of exploring this illusion to its very end? Do you have the courage to face the fact that sometimes the world is nothing more than a series of coins that cannot even remember how many times they have landed heads or tails? If you want to understand why the brain creates this illusion, why we keep blindly believing in the rules we make up, and how to avoid falling into the trap, keep watching. Because our journey has only just begun. Have you ever sat in front of a gambling table, staring at the cards, absolutely convinced that your luck was about to change? Have you ever watched a penalty shootout, seen a player miss 3 times in a row, and thought to yourself, this time, he is definitely going to score? If you are nodding your head, you are not alone. Because millions of people, from professional gamblers in the casinos of Las Vegas to everyday lottery players, have fallen into the same invisible psychological trap we call the gambler's fallacy. Picture a man sitting in a casino. In front of him is the roulette table spinning round and round. The little white ball bounces and clatters over the red and black numbers. Tonight, the black slot has come up 12 times in a row. A crowd gathers around the table, whispering with eager eyes. A middle-aged woman leans over and murmurs in his ear, "Next time, it has to be red. It cannot keep landing on black forever." So he pushes all the cash he has left onto red. The ball rolls. His heart pounds like a battle drum. Sweat beads on his forehead. But then, black shows up for the 13th time, cold and unfeeling, like a cruel reminder that randomness does not care one bit about our beliefs. Does that feel familiar to you? We grow up believing that the universe follows some fair rule. If you try long enough, failure will eventually give way to success. If you flip a coin and it lands on tails 10 times in a row, you will feel sure that the 11th flip has to be heads. It has to be, right? The truth is, it does not. Just think about an ordinary Saturday night. A group of friends gathers to play rock, paper, scissors to decide who will pay for the pizza. One of them, it might even be you loses 5 games in a row. Everyone bursts out laughing, patting you on the back to cheer you up, saying, "You are just having a bad streak. Sooner or later, you are bound to win." But the probability has not changed at all. A new round begins. Everyone goes right back to the starting line fair, indifferent. If you feel like there is something unreasonable about this, ask yourself, why do we smart, rational human beings get pulled into this familiar illusion? Why do we believe that a long losing streak is a sign that a win must be right around the corner, when in reality, every roll of the dice or flip of the coin is an entirely independent event? Let us look back at history. On a summer night in August of the year 1913, in the glamorous Monte Carlo casino, a classic story unfolded. The roulette wheel landed on black 26 times in a row. The crowd panicked, shoving their way forward to bet on red, absolutely sure that the balance of fairness had to return. They mortgaged their houses, borrowed hot money, and threw every last coin they had onto red. When the ball spun for the 27th time and landed on black again, countless people lost their entire fortunes in just a few hours. Do you see the paradox? Hundreds of people believed that the streak of black was too long to possibly continue, and it was that belief, not the wheel itself, that destroyed them.